It's time. 4 years of sacrifices, hard work, and anticipation comes to the fore when the Paris Olympics gets underway on July 26 in the City of Love. Singapore will be represented by several talented athletes across various sports such as athletics, badminton, swimming, and sailing. Hi, I'm Deepanraj Ganesan, and this is a special episode of the Straits Times monthly sports podcast, The Hard Tackle. As we eagerly anticipate the upcoming Paris Games, today we're exploring what makes the Olympics such a unique and special event. And joining me to discuss this very special topic are my brilliant guests here. First and foremost, I've got Assistant Sports Editor Rohit Brijnath, I've got current swimmer Quah Ting Wen, and I've got former national shooter Lee Wung Yew, and former national sprinter Kunalan. I think you look so fit that I thought you could still run. Welcome to the show. First and foremost, Olympics is such a big thing for me as a sports journalist, and I'm sure for you guys as former and current athletes as well. Rohit, I want to start with you. In terms of the Olympics, what did it mean to you growing up? What was the Olympics?
So all my stories of the Olympics, came from my dad, because he really loved the Olympics. He thought that it was a very honorable sporting event. And I think he like I eventually got to like the fact that there's this, there is no bigger secular gathering of people than at the Olympics where you have, 10,000 people, from athletes from all over the world. And what I really like also is that I think in the modern world now, we focus ourselves on particular sports. People are watching weekly football or they're watching NBA and, stuff, or Formula One. But I think at the Olympics, you get to see a lot of athletes that you don't normally see, and you get a lot of sports, and I think a lot of sports for whom the Olympics is the pinnacle. I think for swimming, for shooting, for athletics, this 4-year games where you're training so hard for 4 years for this moment, you don't know if anything is going to go wrong, the nervousness, and the tension to it. I don't think any sport has anything like that. And I love the fact that I get to see these athletes who I wouldn't otherwise see, or people don't necessarily see on a weekly basis. And, in my mind, all sports are equal. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's really, really beautiful to see these athletes at work.
Fantastic. Ting Wen, what did the Olympics mean to you growing up? When did you first hear about this thing called the Olympics?
I think in 2004, I was 12 that year, and I think that was the year that some of my senior teammates, so people like Jocelyn Yeo, Nicolette Teo, I think Mark Shea, Gary Tan, like all the seniors, I think they went for that one in Athens, and I think I just started my journey into competitive swimming, and I think once you're in the sport for a while, the Olympics comes up naturally, and I think my coach had mentioned it a few times, it being the biggest games for swimming, and so that kind of stuck in my mind. And it's never been the end goal for me, but it's always just kind of been there where it's like a ladder or like stairs where I'm like slowly climbing up, and it's always kind of been there in the distance for me when I was younger.
Fantastic. Wung Yew, what about for you? Growing up, when did you first hear of this thing called the Olympics, and when do you start to aspire towards this?
Wow. It's like in the early 90s. But back then, the Olympics was like a mythical idea, a concept, a place. And most of us don't even, back then, believe that we are good enough to participate in the event. So as we progress in our sport, we took part in SEA Games and all that. And then that reality comes when you're invited to participate in the OG. My first one was in 96, Atlanta. And back then, we don't have a lot of what we have now, social media, the internet, all that. So what we learn is through, what we read in the papers, like articles from, like from our journalists, okay? And this is a very a unique thing for athletes, because when it's like the pinnacle of sports, it's like this special place that everybody wants to go, and that's how it felt for me, at the very beginning.
Kunalan, coming to you now. Wung Yew talked about it being a special place. Was that how you saw it as well growing up? And what was the first memory of the Olympics like for you?
I never heard of the Olympics when I was growing up. I even coming onto the sporting scene was when I was 20. So, there was no looking forward to competitive sports like the SEA Games, SEAP Games, or Asian Games, or anything. It just came on, and then I accepted it, whatever came, and then I progressed. So, I think my experience with the Olympics is nothing like, my two Olympians here.
Okay, so when you say that it's nothing like it, is it because of how early it was? Do you think it was very different at the time?
I guess the Olympics was going on, but it had nothing to do with me at that time.
Okay, so only when you first went there did you finally realize the mammoth of this big event, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
I came on the scene in 1962, 63, and then we became Malaysia in 63, and then in 64, I got a chance to represent Malaysia at the Olympic Games in Tokyo.
Yeah, so it's a nice fact, right, that Kunalan here has represented two countries at the Olympics, Singapore and Malaysia. It's something that not many people know about, and it's something I found out while researching for this episode. I want to start off with your first Olympic Games, and Rohit, I'm going to start with you. So for people not in the know, when it comes to the newsroom and getting to go to the Olympics as a journalist, you got to earn your colours. So I'm not going to the Paris Olympics yet as a journalist because I'm still young compared to Rohit here. But Rohit has been to many. Rohit, what was your first Olympic Games as a journalist, and what were your nerves like going into it? Is it as nervy as an athlete?
I mean, obviously, your first games, there's always your writing pressure. They have to sort of make the story. We have to write the story. So it was 1996 in Atlanta. So I would not say it was the greatest introduction to the games because I thought Atlanta was a bit of a corporate games. I've been lucky. I've been to 6. So it was probably the least impressive games that I've been to. But it doesn't matter because I saw, Michael Johnson break the world record in the 200 meters, and you see stuff like that. And so I was in India then, and I was coming from India, and then you are not really being introduced to world-class athletes of that level. So just to see, how professional they are, how strong they are, it's actually a bit intimidating. It's like they are so far removed from Asia at that time. Now that gap has been, compressed a lot, but at that time it is fantastic. I mean, it is like wherever you go, you are watching world-class things. And I was very lucky because I wasn't working for a newspaper. I was working for a magazine. That means I didn't have to write every day. So I could actually sit and watch and soak it all in and then, go back later and write maybe after a couple of days. So it was, it is probably, I would say the Olympics is by far my most favorite thing in sport to cover.
Is it the most challenging to cover?
Yes, because I feel that it's like if I go to the Australian Open to cover tennis, I'm only covering one sport, so it's much easier. So it's the same thing that you're writing about. But if you go to the Olympics, you better have knowledge about lots of things. Like whether it is taekwondo or swimming, I don't want to go and ask her stupid questions or ask him. I need to know a little bit about shooting. I need to know a little bit about athletics. So it's very important that So that's good. It builds up the foundation of your knowledge. So that's a really good thing. But so I'll tell you a story about another colleague of mine. I won't mention his name. So when he came with me to Rio for the Olympics, and he came with me the first day, we went to the press center and he was walking around, and then in the afternoon he told me, I need to go back, to the hotel. I said, are you all right? What's happened? He said, no, this is just too intimidating. I need to lie down for a little while. So it can be intimidating because it's huge, it's massive. But there's what joy, I go to the swimming, I'm seeing, people, Ian Thorpe doing fantastic things. I go to the diving, I go to the gymnastics, it's unbelievable.
You talked about 96 being your first Olympics.
Yeah.
Someone else had your debut in 96 as well. How was it like for you, Wung Yew, in terms of firstly knowing that you were going to the Olympics? How did you know?
Phone call from my association. Hey, you're going to the Olympics. It's like this. It took me a while to rationalize what was happening, But when it finally dawned onto me that, hey, I'm going to this mythical place again, it's exciting, and preparations. Back then, we were already doing a lot of high performance training, and it's just like it was a smooth transition to where we're supposed to be competing in. The only little hiccups would be, just at the point in time when you're selected for the sport, suddenly there's this whole barrage of support staff coming to you. Sports psychology, physiology, and all that. And then it is like you're venturing into unknown territories, or what's happening. So it was a bit confusing, perhaps maybe in the beginning. But it took a while, and it became more comfortable as the date approaches. And I suppose that was my main thought back then. A bit of overwhelming confusion when this sudden onslaught of support that's coming towards you.
Kunalan, for you, your first Olympics as representing Team Singapore was at the 1968 Mexico Games. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
how was that like for you? I mean, going to the Olympics as a Singaporean, what are your best memories of that particular one?
Yeah, I had to qualify to go, and then the journey there, it took 2 days. So we stopped here and stopped there and stopped there, and then finally we got there, and then we got there at about midnight, and we were brought to the village, and then they told us, your rooms are not ready yet. So I remember they gave us, for me, I had a mat along the corridor, and I slept there for the first night.
Wow.
And then next day we were given our rooms. Then the other thing is this, I went there without a coach. Anyway, the whole team was made up of 4 athletes. Me from track, there were 1 shooter and 2 weightlifters. And then there was a team manager and a chef de mission. But the chef de mission we didn't see at all. But the team manager, he had to spend more time with the 2 weightlifters because they were Mandarin speaking. And so he had to be with them all the time, looking after them and so on. So I was on my own all the way. I also remember my coach had given me a training schedule for those few days that I was going to be there. I put it on my desk, and then I had to look after myself. When is the bus going to the training venue, and what time is this, what time is that, when is the heats? And then there was a pre-Olympic track and field races, and then I had to make sure I was there also to take part. And then going for training, and then making sure you get up at the right time, have your meal, and then go for the heats, catch the bus. And I remember this, after the first round, those who were first and second would go automatically to the next round, and then the fastest, third placing or something like that. And then I was third in my heat, and so I had to wait. And I had to wait because the results were not out. And by the time the results came out, it was like 11 a.m. or something. And then and my name was in. I was going to go to the next round. And then I had to rush home, have a meal, and get the things ready, and then back to the bus and back to the track. So, that was my experience at the Olympics.
So Kunalan's story basically tells the story of how logistics was like back in the day. I mean, even to sleep on the corridor on a mat can you imagine that happening at the Paris Games? I'm sure it will be all over social media, I'm sure. Rohit, what does that also tell us about how sports has evolved in terms of the care and attention given to athletes?
No, I mean, it's it's, like so Kunalan is saying he went without a coach and all. I mean, today, in most countries that is like unheard of, right? To go out, the support systems, I think, Singapore even also has, sometimes you have a Singapore house or whatever, there's a physio, there's medicine, there's maybe home food. You guys get home food also at these places or whatever?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes or whatever. Basically, she's saying it shyly because they're spoiled. No. But it's amazing. But it is so important now, and it is so professional. I think, and it's interesting that you say this thing about the bus timings, etc. Because there's a very famous story. I've got my Olympics wrong. I can't remember whether it was 72 or somewhere there, that two of the best American sprinters, who were top sprinters, missed their race because they got the timings wrong on when their heat was. So you can imagine training for 4 years and missing the race because you get the timing wrong. That doesn't happen now. So I think everything is, the organization is,
Super.
I think, pretty amazing. It's just professional. That is, I think all athletes, even though it often seems that maybe if you're a kayaker or something like that, you're almost amateurish because you're not really making money out of it. No Olympic athletes really make money, right? But the systems are very strong because I think countries, national associations get involved. Everybody's involved in the medal tally and whatnot. So I think there's a lot more money put into the Olympics perhaps than was put before.
That's correct. Ting Wen, just want to check with you in terms of your experience at your first Olympics. When were you informed that you were going to your first Olympics? What was that call or conversation like?
My first one was in 2008. It was in Beijing. I don't exactly remember when I got the call or the email, but I think I knew pretty early on in the year that I had made the B cut for the 400 IM, and I think for most of 2008, it was spent just kind of training leading up to the games in China. And I remember just being so excited because it was my first time. I was only 15 that year. I remember that team being a little bit bigger, and I had my best friend going with me who was swimming. Not the same events, but we were roommates. That was actually the beginning of our relationship as teammates and competitors for about 6 or 7 years. But that was my first games, and I remember just being very, very excited for it.
So what's your favorite memory of that particular Olympic Games? Like, at which point in Beijing do you realize, like, wow, it's the Olympics?
I think the opening ceremony. The swimmers very rarely get to go for opening ceremony for many games because swimming tends to be the first sports to happen. So for SEA Games, Asian Games, sometimes Commonwealth Games also, they put swimming in front. And because of that, the coaches, the team managers usually want us to be rested. And the opening ceremony, it lasts a few hours, you're on your legs for a long time, and they don't really like that for us. But I think just because of the scheduling of Beijing, and it was also our first Olympics, we were allowed to go for the opening ceremony. And I think that was that was when I realized like how big an event it was. I've heard of it before, I've seen it in the papers, I've watched it on TV, but actually being there was a very, very, it was a whole new experience for me, and to do that with, some of my good friends on the team made it very fun.
Nice.
So I just wanted to ask something that, when you go to your first games, you're usually quite young when you go to your first games, and you're coming from a smaller sporting country. When you go and in the locker room or in the call room and you see these guys who have won golds and these great swimmers or great shooters or great runners, is it intimidating?
Very. I was young at that age. I was tall, but I was pretty scrawny, and I just never seen such strong. Everyone was just so majestic. Everyone was just at the height of strength, speed, power, and just being surrounded by all of that. Anywhere, right? Not just at the pool, but even in the games village, just walking into the dining hall and seeing some of most of the best from the world. It was not just intimidating, I think also very inspiring.
I think same question for Wung Yew. It's a brilliant question in terms of when you go to these games, right? How is it so different from your world meets, your SEA Games, your Asian Games? Why is it that at the Olympics there's this lure, almost like a lure of wow, I've made it. Like you use that phrase a lot when it comes to the Olympics.
Okay, for my first game, yeah, it was again overwhelming because the gods of shooting, they're all there. So when you're in the like say the competitors' room, you're just like, oh my god, wow, in the flesh, you know. So that was something very special for me to be near, to be in the same room, breathing the same air as these people, and it was really a special moment for me. And like what Ting Wen's mentioned, it was truly inspiring because you see the way they behave, you see the way they manage themselves. It's something that I've never learned when I was a shooter in Singapore because the exposure back then was very limited. So when I was in the same place with these people, you interact with them and then you realize these people are also mere mortals. But we look at them like, whoa. And they share tips with you, they talk, they're super friendly. And that's how many of us stayed in the sport for so many years, decades, because of these people. And some of them became really good friends over the years, and we are still in touch. Many of them have already retired, and we're still good friends.
Fantastic. Kunalan, do you share the same experience in terms of when you make it to the Olympics? You're surrounded by some of the greatest in the world. How do you feel at that time?
I think it felt greater when I went to the first Olympics in '64, watching them go to the track and doing their training, etc. And then trying to recall who is this and who is that and so on. But later on when I went to the Mexico Olympics, I think it was not that intimidating. I recall going for the heats and noticing one of the top sprinters from America just in the same event, same heats. And I'm wondering, wow, I'm going to run with him and so on. But, I think when you are in that situation, you are also not intimidated by all these names or whatever. And you focus on your warming up and preparing, making sure that you have the spikes ready and so on. And I think I had good control over myself at that time already. Because, as I said, I started when I was 20, and that was in 1963. And then 4 years later, I'm already 24, 25. So I'm not a kid anymore.
Plenty of experience, yeah.
So there's one more thing which I like about the Olympics, which, if you don't mind, I just asked them, is that what I like about the Olympics is that, so if I'm covering tennis, then everybody has, 4 majors in 1 year. You have the Australian Open, Wimbledon, US Open, French Open. Same with golf, right? So if you miss one chance, maybe a couple of months later, you have another chance. So I'm just wondering for you guys, when you go to the Olympics, do you feel that pressure that, look, I must do my best. I'm not going to get another chance because if the next chance is 4 years away. So I'm wondering whether that pressure ever tells on you guys that, I better not mess this up because the chance is a long time away.
I think so. I think on the biggest world stage, everyone would want to perform their best there. And just I think knowing that the next chance would be like in 4 years, I think that puts a little bit more pressure. At least I feel that in swimming, yeah.
I suppose for shooting sports, it's a little bit different because they don't have these 4 majors that were just mentioned, but they do have the Olympic qualification events. So it's held usually like about 2 years before the Olympics, and that's where every country throws their athletes there. And we just try to qualify. So most of the event, you need to be placed in the top field in order to even smell the Olympic quota. So yeah, it's always pretty intense, and everyone's vying for that slot because unlike athletics or swimming, you may have multiple events. For shooting, just two people per nation. So it's really high pressure kind of competitions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also have to ask, when it comes to the Olympics, and you talked about it, the 4-year thing, right? So do athletes look at it like it's a 4-year plan, or is it a year-on-year getting better kind of thing that you've got to approach it with? What's your approaches like?
No approach at all. SEAP Games, okay, you prepare for it, and you go, and you come back, and then carry on training, and then next one might be a Commonwealth Games or Asian Games. You prepare that way. No big plans. So I know I never had plans to say, okay, now the Olympics is coming, I got to prepare this and do this and do that. No. Moreover, I was a school teacher, so I have to do my teaching, go home, mark books, and then go for training, come back, and I have a family to look after also. Sports was just one part of my life at that time, but it was not the most important part. So I think I feel sorry that I have to say such things.
Don't be sorry.
But that was the situation in those days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wung Yew, for you, was it a 4-year plan? Do you work towards it with a 4-year view, or how do you approach it?
It's not formal, but it's always at the back of your head. And there will be the management of the association, they'll be planning something for us back then. Very, very primitive compared to what it is now. Very, very primitive. So it's like they'll tell you, third year, got qualification, train hard, that kind of approach. So yeah, and of course we will key in that or make a mental note of the competitions that we're supposed to go, designated the Olympic qualification slots, and yeah, and we just prep to go. And then we need to qualify in Singapore. We shoot a certain score before we are even allowed to look at that plane ticket.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ting Wen, for you, what's it like planning for Olympics?
It sounds like the management has, sort of evolved and become a little bit more sophisticated. Like when you said that there's definitely a lot more planning from upper management. But if you're asking, on the ground, the swimmers, how we view it, how I view it, I actually I agree with Mr. K. You know that the Olympics are every 4 years, but the SEA Games are every 2 years, Asian Games are every 4 years, Commonwealth Games are every 4 years, and the World Championships for swimming are every 2 years. And you kind of have this inner timetable where, yes, you kind of know that you are on a 4-year Olympic cycle because then the year before Olympics there's always World Championships and SEA Games, and then the year after Olympics there's also World Championships and SEA Games, and then 2 years before and after Olympics there'll be Asian Games and Commonwealth Games, and it kind of helps you in a way plan that cycle, but I don't think I'm just 100% fixated on that 4-year cycle because of the Olympics. I train for all the games, SEA Games, Asian Games, Commonwealth Games, and the Olympics. I think I give my all every time before going to the games. I do see the Olympics as a level up, but I've never, held back on training just as hard for the SEA Games, just because it might be a different tier of competition. I think the way we were trained growing up was to always, give our all going into the big games. And yes, the Olympics are every 4 years, and there's this thing called the Olympic cycle where we kind of have this timetable, but there are other things also that, like Mr. K said, are on our plate, and we also give our time and energy to.
We've spent quite a lot of time talking about our experiences at the Olympics and what it really means to compete at the Olympics. I said it off camera earlier in terms of how Singaporeans they need better understanding of what the Olympics really is. And I say this because I was sharing with Kunalan off camera that, for example, when Shanti won the Asian Games, a lot of comments that I saw was, Olympics next. She needs to win a medal at the Olympics. And Rohit, you laugh because we know what the world timings are. We know what the world's fastest sprinters are like. Why is it that you think that there's these expectations when it comes to the Olympics that Singaporeans think that, we need to be at the final, we need to win medals? Could you explain why that's not as easy as it sounds?
I don't know. I'm sure they'll all have their view and they know much better because they are athletes in the system. I think sometimes, it goes back to that old story. I think, Singapore is an academic nation. It is not a sports nation. The sporting culture is being built and it's much better, and there are new stadiums and there are better athletes. But I think people are still not so into sport, right? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes I felt this with Joseph's schooling, that I think people didn't understand sometimes how difficult it is to win Olympic gold. And they would say, why is he not won another one? Why he never won the World Championship? Man, it's hard. It is really, 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 really hard to beat the whole world in something. So I think, but that understanding is, that's how sports cultures are built. Slowly, knowledge comes and you realize that something is really, really hard. I mean, for example, I always look at this in a totally different subject, but in tennis, people see Federer and Nadal hitting the ball, but they don't realize on TV, unless you go and see them from 10 feet away, how hard they hit the ball, how fast they move. I mean, the world is operating at such a high level in everything. And I think we are slowly beginning to understand that thing. So I think sometimes our expectations are not in tune with reality. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly said. Yeah. Do you see that also? I mean, I talked about the comments with Shanti, right? In terms of you competing at previous Olympic Games, do you also sense that sense of expectations from Singaporeans, and how do you cope with that?
I think our sport is very televised every 2 and 4 years, right? It's when the SEA Games, Asian Games, and Olympics are on. And like Rohit said, I think people don't really understand how difficult it is at that level and how much work needs to be put to compete at that stage. And I've kind of gotten used to the comments, I think, been doing this for a while. So, every 4 years when the Olympics rolls around, you get the usual comments of like, how many medals are we going to win this time? And comparisons to previous rankings and stuff. And it still feel the pressure, but I think a little bit less. I think on my end, getting a little bit older, I kind of understand sometimes when, people are removed from something or they're not involved in something as deeply as we are. Sometimes it's a little bit hard for them to understand that, the minute of swimming that they see on TV is just a very, very small snippet. And most of the time, unless it's perfect, it's not. So.
Well said. Wung Yew, how do we educate Singaporeans better in terms of the pursuit of an Olympian? Is there something more that can be done? I know over the years, I think people realize better. I think people know better, but there's still quite a gap in terms of them realizing what it takes. How can we improve that?
I think one of the main problems would be the systems that we grew up with. It's like take for example the school system. You finish primary school, you go through this major life-changing examination called a PSLE. Mm-hmm. Boom, you're supposed to go to the next level. And then another 4 years, you sit for the O level or N level. Boom, you go to the JC or poly or whatever. And after that, boom, the uni. So I think people would have the same kind of mindset even for sports, because they will see like, okay, local Singapore champion, bang. Next one, SEA Games champion, bang. Asian Games champion, bang. Commonwealth, bang. Olympics, must win lah. Mm. That's why that idea of Shanti winning the gold medals at Asian Games, she's Olympics next. So that's the mindset that I think most people will have. So I suppose, hopefully over time, like what Rohit mentioned, the sports culture can slowly come in. I would say slowly, hopefully faster kind of pace, and people will understand the whole thing better than just they don't see the kind of hard work these people put in. The sweat, the tears, the injuries they go through. No one sees that, but they see the medal. Oh, yay! And then it's forgotten. And then when the news of them come up again, yeah, the Olympics, this person must win because he or she won at the Asian Games. Yeah, it's the next higher level. Macam playing video games. Next higher level. Yeah.
So you would be best placed to sort of explain, why it's such a difficult task to perhaps even make the semi-finals at the World Athletics, or rather the athletics competition at the Games. So could you explain to Singaporeans, why is it that, yes, we all root for Shanti, but we must also have expectations that match it?
I don't have anything against people who express their views. I'm happy that there are so many people who want to say things about about sports. So I would welcome whatever they are saying, and I don't blame them. What can I say to them? I would say thank you for even reading about us and talking about us. And that makes you like our family. And if I don't agree with your thoughts, it doesn't matter also. As long as you are reading and supporting sports.
So it's a very lovely, refreshing viewpoint. But so one of the things I feel about a sports culture is when you have a sports culture, that means more people are playing sport. So if more people are swimming or shooting and running, then they start to understand that sport a little bit more. Yep. Then you start to understand, okay, a swimming turn or a swimming start or, shooting, a clay pigeon out of the air is a little bit harder than I thought. And then to do this, then you think, okay, I only hit like 20 clay pigeons out of 60. And then I'm thinking, he hit 60 out of 60 or whatever. I mean, how does he do that? So I think the more people play sport in a country, I think the better understanding they have of the little intricacies that a sport demands, and therefore they're able to understand, oh my God, in a penalty corner in hockey, it moves that fast, or the goalkeeper, it hurts so much. I think the more you play, the more you understand. And I think that would help. I don't know whether you guys would agree with that.
Yeah, so I think also what you are trying to say is that it's good that more people are getting into sports and they will realize it for themselves. And I completely agree. I think younger people, and then through them, their parents will understand what it takes to be an elite sportsman in Singapore. My last question before I let all of you go would be to find out what your favorite Olympic moment ever is. I'll start with you, Rohit, because you're closest to me. I know I'm putting you on the spot. While the rest have a bit more time to think. What is your favorite Olympic moment? Only one.
Only one?
Yes.
Okay. So it wasn't one. It was a whole group of things by one. So I would say that Michael Phelps winning 8 gold medals in Beijing in 2008 is the greatest thing I've ever seen, and it is the one thing I know that I have seen at the Olympics that I will never see again in my life. I feel I will never see. Only other things, even Usain Bolt, I feel I might see a guy win 100 meters by that margin. I don't know. But 8 gold medals, I don't think I will ever see. And I couldn't even, I mean, there was luck involved, there was skill, there were so many things, but it was like just actually out of this world.
Okay, Ting Wen, yourself?
Similar to Rohit, not Michael Phelps' 8 golds, but one particular one, which was the 4x100 men's relay. And it wasn't actually Michael Phelps swimming, it was the last leg, it was Jason Lezak. It was the one where, it was a relay where they were actually behind the French team when Jason Lezak jumped in and he did like an incredible 100-meter split, caught up to the guy, out-touched, and he was the one that gave Michael his 7th, I think, gold medal, kind of kept his dream alive. And I just remember just the state, the pool was just, everyone was going crazy. The French were screaming in sadness, the Americans were screaming in happiness, and everyone was just screaming. And it was really, I just get goosebumps even just thinking about it. So
fantastic moment for you, Wung Yew.
Wow. I wouldn't say this is the favorite part of it, but it is something that's etched in my memory for a very long time. 1996, if you guys recollect, there's like a domestic terrorist thing there. So what happened was I was with our fellow Olympians. So we were standing exactly where the bomb went off 2 hours before that.
Wow.
So we were watching a concert. So we were done with it. And like 6 or 7 of us, we were walking back. Boom, the thing went. And we thought it was fireworks. So we all looked up. Hey, where are they? And it's only much later that we realized that a bomb was detonated at the spot where we were standing. So that was something that, remained like really, really in our heads for a long time.
Wow.
Okay.
But of course, not in media lah. Now they know lah.
Yeah. Kunalan, what has been your favorite Olympics memory?
Receiving airmail letter from my wife. Because, in those days, there was no, I think making phone calls was very expensive and very troublesome. And so it was being in touch with my wife was very important for me at that time. Get the letter open and then read whatever it's saying so I can reply and so on. I'm sorry, but this is what I felt at that time.
No, it's a fantastic moment.
Yeah, Mr.
But
K,
I'm going
that's
to be a
also-
busybody to ask what was in the letter. Was it words of encouragement?
Yes, always encouragement and telling about what the children are doing, etc., etc. But my letters to her would be about how I miss her hugs and kisses and so on.
That's all,
I
that's
think
all.
it's a sweet way to end things off. And to the viewers and the listeners, this has been an Olympics special for the Heart Tickle episode. I'm Deepanraj Ganesan and I have a fantastic guest today. Thank you.